Feels so nice to be back to doing videos and with cars immediately driving by the instant I hit record. Anyhow, hello there friend, welcome back to Max Answers Writing Advice Questions. It's been a real long while, but I'm happy to finally be back. Don't mind the strange lighting around me. I think it looks kinda nice, but we're gonna have to wait and see how it looks like on YouTube and stuff like that. Anyhow, I'm here, I'm ready to answer some questions. I've grouped a couple of questions together and kind of meshed them into the same idea. And what are we talking about today? Well, today we're gonna talk about writing better characters. Now, of course, as always, before I go anywhere, allow me to give you the formal disclaimer and remind you that the following is merely my advice, my opinion, and what works for me. Don't take it as gospel, instead take it as the ramblings of a silly person who happens to look a little like this. That was way too synchronized. Way too synchronized. I bet it looked terrible. So, writing better characters. I got several questions about this, especially during the poll when I was asking for questions about the upcoming AMA. And one of them actually phrased it pretty well. One of the questions was phrased kind of along the idea of like, hey Max, do you have any advice for getting into the head of the character so that you're more better able to relate their emotions and feelings? And I think that is right there. My answer for that is at the root of how to write better characters. Ultimately, I feel that people throw ideas out there about making characters relatable, making them likable, giving them flaws. I'm gonna just come out right now and tell you this right here. All of those things, I feel, are secondary, absolutely, completely secondary to the most important element of writing a character, and that is being true to that character. One of the questions that I got that was asking this kind of almost answered the question themselves, because clearly, of course, the best way to, relay a character's feelings is to get inside of their head. And how do we do this? How do we get inside of a character's head? How do we, walk a mile in their shoes so that we're able to understand them and to relate their feelings to the reader? And in my experience, in my personal experience, and of course if you follow me on the blog and if you follow this channel, you kind of have a feeling for what's coming down the pipe, but allow me to. Wow, I almost kind of fell into my side-end voice there for a moment, don't mind me. In my personal history, with me as a writer, my number one tip for getting into those shoes, for getting into your character's head, is not ultimately a matter of displacing your own feelings and emotions. To me, when I had to boil it down, when I had to get down to the very core meaty chunk of my advice for this, my answer for this question, how do you get inside a character's head so you can relay their feelings better and to make them more real? And my answer for that is really simple. When you're in that character's point of view, in their head, do not question anything they say. Follow me on this, okay? I know a couple of you may be going, excuse me? No, follow me on this, okay? Follow along with me on this ridiculous trail and we'll arrive somewhere better together, okay? I've talked about this in the past a lot, and one of the keys for making better characters is to treat them like, if you want your characters to be like real people, you gotta treat them like real people. And and as I've said in the past as well, I find that a lot of the outlining process kind of tends to be antagonistic to this, because you're creating this impression of the characters before you meet them, and when you actually meet the characters and they do something like contradict the outline, writers freak out. And that's understandable, of course it is. You spend so much time planning and preparing the story, and then when you sit down, your characters are not behaving like you expected. It is understandable to feel a little thrown off, but don't fear, don't fret, that's kind of part of the writing process. As I mentioned, writing is the act of discovery. When you first write the story, you're ultimately telling the story to yourself. So again, if writing is the act of discovery, and writing is the act of first and foremost tell the story to yourself so you can then clean it up and share it with the world, then we must understand that nothing is set in stone, right? The story can change and fluctuate and become its own different thing. The planning that we do in the beginning is not ultimate, it's not finite, it's not rules. The outline is, for me, at least for me, the outline is not the Bible of the story, the rules by which the entire story will be, based upon. To me, the outline is just a seed, the little seedling from which the story sprouts. And as I was saying, in order to get into a character's head, ultimately for me, becomes a matter of not questioning anything they say. If they contradict the outline, hey, guess what? Their words are bigger than the outline. Their words are more important than the outline, and thus that outline is wrong. My original impression as the writer of this character, of this world, doesn't matter. what the characters say matters most. Because why? They live in this world. They're a part of this world. They get a say. I don't. Now, I know that there may be a couple of you out there with a couple of worries, and allow me to kind of tie things together in a moment, okay? Treating characters like people makes them more like people because you're treating them like a real person. You wouldn't judge a person based on your, initial impressions of them. If you thought that a person was one way, and when you finally met them, they were an entirely different way, you wouldn't argue with them. You wouldn't tell them, hey, I thought you were like this. You should be like this. Of course not. That would make you a totally rude person. Treating your characters like people and respecting what they say and how they act gives them this feeling, this sense that they are more than just a puppet that's being moved by the narrator. So, once again, in summary, what is my number one, my top one piece of advice for getting into a character's point of view and into their head so that you're better able to relay their feelings and emotions and struggles and to make them a better, more human-like character? Whenever you are in their point of view, do not question what they say. Do not question what they do. They are a real person. And just like you wouldn't judge a real person, you don't get to judge them. Simple as that. Now, I know that I am a little bit of a radical when it comes to writing advice. I have rather odd and strange ways of doing things, and that's entirely okay. As I've always said, you're free to find your own way to do things. This is ultimately just the way that works for me, the way that has been the most effective, and the way that makes writing the most fun. Feel free to find your own way to do things. But I just want you to consider a little strange and radical way of doing things. As a little bit of a quick anecdote to just close today's episode, there is this really nice story about J.R.R. Tolkien and how he originally thought of Strider, because I think you can find this interview, it's out there somewhere. But in this interview, he talks about the fact that when he first met Strider, J.R.R. Tolkien had no idea who the hell Strider was. J.R.R. Tolkien in the interview said that, when the moment came, when the reveal finally struck that, this Strider fellow was actually Aragorn, this really, really important, figure in the human world, he himself was shocked. And isn't that the fun of the act of writing? Of course you're gonna be shocked, because when you're first writing the story, you're writing it for yourself. You're telling yourself the story, discovering it as though you are dusting off a fossil that you have uncovered yourself deep, deep, deep down in the earth. That's the fun in writing. And I wanted to give that story because people point at J.R.R. Tolkien as the master of world building and the master of planning and outlining, and even he had no idea who Strider was. And did he question Strider? No, he let him be. Of course, J.R.R. Tolkien didn't look at this guy who turned out to be amazing and ridiculous, and he goes, no, you're just a random Strider Ranger man, okay? You're not the heir to the throne of the human kingdoms, please. Just putting that out there. Next time you're writing a character and you're giving them the space to be themselves and to speak and to have a voice within your world, no matter what they say, no matter how silly it may seem, no matter how much it wrecks your outline, don't silence them. Let them speak, and let them take you into a world that is better than anything you could have ever imagined. Going into the unknown may be scary, but it is the only way to make things exciting. At least that's just what I think. But yes, that's all I have to say for today. Don't mind the strange lighting. Wow, it just got really dark all of a sudden. Don't mind the strange cloudiness outside in this wonderful California sky. Silliness aside, thank you for watching. And if you have your own thoughts or ideas on this subject, please feel free to go into the comments below and share your own thoughts and ideas. Again, this is all just writing advice and our own points of view, Writing is not about hard rules, about rights or wrongs, okay? Find out what works for you and go out and tell stories. Thank you for watching. Thank you for spending a little bit of your day with me, and I'll be seeing you soon. Mwah!